Hello again, this is Alex Chavez with NS Corporation bringing to you another helpful how-to video. In this video, we're going to show how to properly clean your over and under conveyor and conveyor pit. One of the things we want to focus on is getting all the dirt, grime, not only out of the pit, but off of all those components of the conveyor. Spraying off the soft surface right now. Here's your lubrication channel over here. You want to make sure we clean all that off. Like I said, this conveyor's about 4 years old. You want to make sure we get all that old debris put on there. Inspect components, bearings, make sure the bearings are good, the bearings aren't worn out. Chains, sprockets, your take-up forks. So as we get all this off, you can see there the screw jack is down there for tensioning the, releasing the chain tension. There's a good buildup of dirt right there on that UHMW rest. You can see this jack is right up against this UHMW right here. If you look on this side, you can see that we'll clean it off so you can read it a little bit better. The maintenance operation plate right here, you can see these two are going to travel together. So as the conveyor stretches, these two are going to travel closer and closer to this arrow right here, where it's your maintenance point. We got about another inch to go, which could be a month, could be 3 months, depending on the car wash volume. But once we get to this point, we want to remove a link. And once we remove a link, if the chain's stretched out to that point, this is going to put these 2 points back over here in the operating zone. You see the arrow here and the arrow here. So we're going to just pressure wash all this. Make sure we can get in here and knock everything off from the top down, like I said. We want to spray all the components, the bearings in here, air cylinder, fittings. Makes it so much easier to inspect your system, and if you have an issue, you can go and look freely without obstructions of all the dirt and muck sitting on it. Cleaning these slider bars right here of the take-up is also crucial because these UHMW blocks are sliding on this. You can see where it's been sliding back and forth on here. So they're stainless steel, but you still want to clean off the grime that builds up on them so it doesn't become an abrasive surface that's going to wear out your plastic. We pressure wash the top. We pressure wash directly on all the components, the roller collet forks, the bearings, the gearbox for the actuator to compress the spring. We spray the spring, we spray the take-up box slider bar bushings, the UHMW blocks. The sliders themselves, the stainless steel ones, get all that stuff off of there. Sand, grit, it's detrimental to all the components that are moving around in there. They're going to take that and it's actually sandpaper. So once we've cleaned it all, then we lubricated the conveyor. We started with the idler sprocket. Like I said before in other videos, that the idler sprocket is just spinning on the shaft. You're lubricating the inside of the UHMW bushing. So get pumping grease into it so you see a little bit of grease come out is key. If you don't see grease come out, there might be an issue in there clogging or something. But 99% of the time you see that grease just pop out. So you want to put grease into that at least twice a week if it's a high volume wash, once a week if you're lower 500 and below, 500 cars a day, right? So you want to squirt that. The bearings themselves, you want to put 1 to maybe 2 squirts of grease, pumps of grease into them once a month. And then the actuator itself, that every 3 to 6 months, right? So you want to pump grease into that guy, and it's safe to keep pumping because you're going to see the grease come out of around the threads of the Acme rod. And what that's doing is it's refreshing the grease in there. It's pumping out all the old grease, pushing it out, right? You're going to want to wipe that off, but it's also pushing out any contaminants that might have gotten in there. So that's every 3 to 6 months, depending on the volume of the wash. Now we're going to move on to the exit end of the wash and do that. Thank you for the video. In this video, we'll be showing you how to clean your conveyor pit, but mainly your conveyor. So we clean the conveyor, then we clean the pit. Keeping things clean is essential to the operation and longevity of components, all the products inside the conveyor. This is the lifeline of the car wash. The conveyor goes down, you're not washing cars. You can see all the dirt and muck in here. The excuse here was the maintenance guy is out on medical leave, so maybe that's why this is like this, but there's no excuse for it. There you can see there's rollers, pieces of wood, dirt and grime, right? So we're going to clean that off. Now, this motor relies on it's fan cooled, so these fins right here are the cooling elements of that motor. You gunk all that up, the fan cannot blow air out through there, so that motor's going to run hotter. Being in this situation, it's probably getting water drip on it, keeping it cool. But also this gearbox has a vent plug. That vent plug is intended to evacuate excess heat and pressure buildup in the gearbox, right? So that vent plug is going to allow that hot air and condensation. The condensation cannot go in, but allowed to come out, right? So what we want to do is we want to pressure wash this because we want that vent plug to be wide open so that the gearbox can breathe, or in this case, exhale. So if you look right there, see that brass vent plug is pretty much buried. And keeping it clean, it's also going to allow you to see if you have any leaks, any oil leaks, however minor they are, right? You get a giant leak in here, you're going to notice it, but by then it's probably too late. So we want to pressure wash all the muck off of this gearbox, right? We want to make sure it's nice and clean so we can do our maintenance inspection, right? And then we can log when we did cleaning. I'm going to spray this motor indirectly, so watch yourself there. Notice I'm spraying the fins this way. I don't want water pushing all that muck into the fan, right? So I'm going this direction, blowing it out. These are the cooling fins of the motor. They should be nice and clean, to allow proper cooling. I want to spray the back of this motor cover, the fan shroud. Spraying the fan shroud is going to allow air to flow through there. It was clogged up with stuff, had a little bit of dirt on it. So we want to get it clean. So all this muck right here needs to be shoveled out. What we're going to do right now is we're going to also pressure wash the sprocket. So we're going to take this door off. We'll show you that in a minute. We have already removed the grating from both sides of the conveyor. The cover on the drive section, as you can see, it's wide open and exposed. Safety first. We're running the conveyor. We're making sure to stay away from that portion of it. We also have somebody standing by to shut it off in case we need to shut it off. The other thing is, safety glasses, of course. But what we want to do is, we were looking in this conveyor, and this conveyor is about 4 years old. The maintenance person here has gone on medical leave, so we've taken advantage of that. It's been without maintenance for a little while, so we're going to clean this up. After opening it up, one of the things we noticed, some gunk on the motor. You want to make sure that gunk doesn't build up on the fins of the motor. Because the motor is a fan-cooled motor. It's blowing air along these fins to keep that motor cool. The other thing you want to keep clean, basically all of it, but on the gearbox, you want to spray the whole gearbox. Back here of the gearbox, there's a vent plug. You want to make sure that that's clean. You want to make sure that vent plug can properly work and it's not clogged, so that excess pressure and heat of the gearbox can be exhausted through there. And you also want to make sure everything's clean so you can diagnose, you might have a small little leak that is easy to repair now versus, letting it go for months and months on end until it becomes an expensive repair. All this off, but the reason we have the door open, see how dirty that is? We're going to clean our bolts. That way we can see if anything's moved, right? The key is to keep all the muck and grime, sand and grit that wears out your chain, your rollers. You want to get more life out of your components. The other thing, you want to have visibility so you can diagnose any issues. your maintenance person can get in here and say, oh, okay, well, you know, that link, maybe that pin is rotated the wrong way, or you're starting to see a little leak, or you can check the oil in your gearbox easier. It's easier to get into a clean pit, you know. It's more welcoming than something full of mud and junk. You want to pressure wash over here, here's your proximity switch, your pull switch, you know, the 4 magnets. You want to keep that clean. Anything builds up on them, you know, you can get a piece of paper that gets on them or something that blocks that signal, and then your timing on your tunnel components might be off. You know, so you want to pressure wash all the components right here. The other thing down here we have is the water level float of your conveyor. You know, you want to make sure that that's clean. There's nothing holding this float up that can stop your conveyor. In this case, it doesn't stop the conveyor, it just sets off an audible alarm, which is the best way to do it. You know, an audible alarm tells you exactly what the problem is. You shut off the conveyor, and 90% of the time, you know, employees are running around flipping different switches, and the last thing they look at is the conveyor pit. So, but it's easy enough to, if you're spraying here, you're also spraying the bottom pit, right? You're spraying both at the same time. I'm trying to get all the sand and grit in between these pins. You know, also any sand and grit that falls in between these rollers. And after I'm done cleaning the chain and the center of these dollies, you know, once I feel comfortable with that, then I can come around and just spray the rollers themselves, you know. So after we've done the chain, then we're going to pressure wash or sweep all this mud and dirt that way, and we're going to, you know, shovel it out, get rid of it. But remember, keep it clean. Again, this is Alex Chavez with NS Corporation. If you have any ideas or tips on what videos you'd like to see, let us know. Give us a ring. For any other helpful how-to videos, go to nswash.com. Thank you.